get us up to date with all these different developments then.
Yeah, we're talking away from the front line where the fighting continues to be very, very ferocious. But of course, there's apparently not much movement in the front line to report on at the moment. But certainly in terms of drone attacks, there's been a massive escalation. As you say, the Russians have attacked in Romny, which is in the Sumy district, just to the east of Kyiv. A target appears to be a school. The numbers keep rising. At the moment, it's 4 dead. It includes the head teacher, the deputy head teacher and a librarian, and also 4 injured. But there's quite a lot of debris if you look at the scene there, and it's quite possible there's quite a lot of people still unaccounted for by all accounts. But the big news was overnight the Ukrainians were continuing their strikes against Moscow. Moscow claims that they shot down 3 Ukrainian drones, but it was evident at least one got through and caused a pretty large explosion at the side of a building there. Now, from the video footage and the stills, not a great deal of damage actually done. It was quite an impressive blast. But undoubtedly, the damage here is all psychological. I keep referring to the fact that if this was central London, everybody in London would know about it, and it would be quite a shock. Russia also claims that the Ukrainians have attacked Belgorod, which is just across the border from Ukraine. 3 people were killed there. Now, Ukraine doesn't normally comment on any attacks like this, but what Ukraine has claimed credit for is an attack on Crimea, this massive explosion on Crimea, which apparently was the Ukrainians destroying a missile system there, which is an S-400 long-range missile system, air-to-air. Almost certainly, this was a key success for Ukraine because this system would have been used against Ukrainian forces across Ukraine, a big target for Ukraine to hit.
And why are we hearing about this stepping up of action away from the front line, do you think?
Well, it's fascinating because this is a 6th consecutive day now that Ukraine's been attacking onto Russian soil, which is quite unusual, whether it's Moscow, but also at Novgorod. If you remember, there was the attack on a Russian military airfield. Now, you can just see the nose of an aircraft pointing out from the fireball there. That was a backfire strategic aircraft, strategic bombing aircraft. Now, Russia claimed there was no damage done. I think the pictures tell a very different story from that. And this is all part of President Zelensky taking the fight to Moscow. Now, the US State Department has made the rare comment of saying that they neither encourage nor enable these attacks by Ukraine onto Russian soil. But the real question for me is where they're being launched from, because if they're launched just across the border, you can use small drones to do that. But Moscow and these airfields are hundreds of kilometres away. Ukraine has very limited ability to conduct drone attacks. So it does look increasingly likely that some of these are actually being conducted from Russian soil itself. But regardless, all of this is increasing pressure on President Putin. His #1 priority is to protect his countrymen, and it's increasingly evident he's struggling to do that.
Well, yes, and what can he do to try to step up protection?
Well, the person he has responsible for protecting Russian airspace is the chief of the Russian Air and Aerospace Forces, General Surovikin, who's shown here. He also knows General Armageddon because of his approach to warfare. He's been missing since June because when Yevgeny Prigozhin did his march on Moscow, it wasn't entirely clear how close the friendship was between the two of these. Today, the Kremlin's announced that he has been replaced in post. His deputy, General Viktor Avzalov, is now taking the reins. But this is at a time when President Putin, the pressure on him is rising. The Russian Air Force has not been performing well in Ukraine. And now the increasing vulnerability across the whole of Russia. Really tough time for the deputy to be taking the reins of the Russian Air Force.